In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the first Modern Horizons 3 commander deck that was revealed today. It is Creative Energy, and in it, we're going to look at the new face commander, which is Satya Aetherflux Genius, as well as Aether Refinery, another really powerful card, and 13 other brand new cards, plus some pretty good reprints that makes me think this might actually be some solid value. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for being here. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and then click the bell icon if you want to stay notified when new videos are posted. I am really pumped about Modern Horizons 3. I have not kept that a secret. I have talked about a ton of the cards, and there's more stuff I want to talk about in the coming weeks. But I obviously want to focus on the commander decks this week with the reveals that we're getting, because this is a big one for a lot of people where it's like, do I buy this? Do I not buy it? And we don't know what the price point is going to be, of course, due to the lack of MSRP. But I have to imagine it's probably going to be somewhere in that $65 to $70 ballpark. I think we were seeing like 150 on the collector's edition decks, which like maybe a totally different video topic about whether or not that's worth it. But what I really care about is like, A, do you get some good cards in here, and B, are the reprints decent? And I think that's what we're gonna try to, delve into together and figure out. So without further ado, let's actually just get into talking about the new cards. And then we'll do a bit of a wrap up at the end. Alright, so let's kick things off with the face commander, which is Satya Aetherflux Genius. It is 1 blue, red, white, legendary creature, human artificer with menace and haste. Whenever it attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of up to one other non-token creature you control. You get 2 energy counters. At the beginning of the next end step, sacrifice that token unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. This card was actually one of the really intriguing ones that was revealed when they first showed off the face commanders, because it does a lot and has a lot built into it for relatively low cost. This color combination is obviously going to work really well within energy, and if you guys aren't familiar with energy counters, they were really introduced, I think, back in the Aether Revolt block with Kaladesh and Aether Revolt, and they've probably sprinkled a couple in here and there. I believe the Fallout deck actually had one of the commander decks for Fallout was actually based around energy counters, but it looks like they're going full balls to the wall here with both this commander deck and modern legal energy-based cards that we'll talk about maybe in another video that are really going to be interesting to kind of shake up that mechanic. And the energy counters are just sort of physical counters that you have. I don't know, I believe they're considered counters that you as a person or player have, but I'm sure that obviously there's ways to proliferate them and things like that. But this makes a copy of a token, and obviously you can't really copy legendaries much, but if you have things that create more energy counters when they enter the battle, do all kinds of different things, it opens the door for so many different paths. You could realistically play this without even building around energy, because maybe you just want to utilize something that makes copies of stuff, and it does have haste, so you can do all kinds of silly things with it. And yes, you have to pay energy to keep the creature alive, but in some cases maybe you don't even want to. Maybe you want to sack it and then get whatever trigger you get off of getting rid of it. Overall, it's a really well-rounded card and a really strong commander option comparatively to Kaith, Famed Mechanist, or Mechanist, I don't really know how you'd pronounce that, which is also 1 blue, red, white with legendary creature, Dwarf Artificer with Fabricate 1. When it ETBs, you put a +++ counter on it, or create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. Other non-token creatures you control have Fabricate 1, which of course, the one we just established, basically comes out with a counter, or you create an artifact creature. Then you can pay 2 and tap this, choose one, either Populate or Proliferate. Populate is choose a token you control and make a copy of it. Proliferate says choose any number of counters on players or permanents and give additional counters. So very different play style in terms of the other commander, but it doesn't mean it's bad. I just think the other one's a little more flashy, kind of a bit more interesting jumping off the surface, but I think there's a lot you can do with this too. Being able to utilize things like the proliferating with energy counters, obviously making more of them and getting more out of your effects that care about how many you have, are going to be some of the strongest things this card has going for it. But what do you guys think is the better of the 2 face commanders? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let's move on to the next card. Next up is Aether Refinery. This card has some sweet artwork, and it is 4 red artifact. It says if you would get 1 or more energy counters, you get twice that many instead. Then you can tap it, you get an energy counter, and then you may pay 1 or more energy counters. If you do, create an XX black Aetherborn creature token where X is the amount of energy paid this way. So it's essentially a doubling season for energy counters that can also produce its own, which is really, really strong. It does cost a bit to get into play. However, the amount of rewards that you get when you are able to get it out is definitely not something to be overlooked. I think any energy deck is really going to want to utilize this, especially because as an engine, kind of no pun intended, it'll be able to move things forward quite a bit. And there are some cards that can not only reduce the cost of artifacts, but also, you know, there may be some ways to even cheat this out onto the field. And once this is out, you really start to pop off, where your opponents are probably going to want to remove this if you're really starting to get things going. Or, you know, at least you're going to be able to... You can honestly even utilize it to create a pretty damn strong token, but I think some people may care more about the doubling effect just because of how many cards want you to pay energy and how you're able to kind of make that work within, you know, what we have here. Now, moving along, as I'm trying to move this video along at a relatively quick pace, because I know there's a lot of cards, I know they end up being long, but I just want to make sure I'm, you know, touching on the important ones as well. Overclocked Electromancer, awesome artwork here. 2 and a red, creature, Lizard Wizard. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 3 energy. If you do, put a plus and plus counter on this card. When it attacks, double its power till end of turn. When it deals combat damage to a creature, if that creature was dealt excess damage, you get X energy counters, where X is that excess damage. Lot going on here. I wish it had haste. I'm not sure why it doesn't, but being able to pay 3 energy, give it a counter, not terrible. Obviously, it can become extremely strong if you're able to double its power or buff it with other things, but another way to generate energy counters. It's nothing crazy in terms of what it can do for the deck, I don't think, especially because it doesn't have any abilities like that. However, it's definitely a card that is a decent way to generate energy counters, and considering the limitations that there aren't a shit ton of them at this point that you can utilize, it may be one to use. Maybe not, though. I don't know what you guys think of this one. It's nothing crazy, like I said, but it's also not a terrible card. Just one of those things that I think may be a little bit more on the meh side of things. Hourglass of the Lost is 2 and a white artifact. Tap for white, put a time counter on Hourglass of the Lost. Or tap, remove X time counters from Hourglass of the Lost and exile it. Return each non-land permanent card with mana value X from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. This feels kind of out of place in this deck, but it's also extremely strong as far as I can tell. Being able to proliferate, stack the counters up, and then just basically get rid of it and bring a ton of stuff back from your graveyard feels really strong. Obviously, it is a sorcery, but it can be a mass reanimate that's not going to cost that much if you can kind of start to utilize those proliferate mechanics to stack up counters. Obviously, you're going to want to play this in something that you have a way to get a lot of time counters on it quickly, but if you are able to resolve that and the opponent doesn't get rid of it, you can then use this to just fill the board with, it's not just creatures either, all non-land permanents. You can bring a ton of stuff back, and that's just a really powerful effect to have on a card like this. Overall, I like it a lot. I don't think it's necessarily super strong in the energy deck, but I do think it's a good card that is worth keeping an eye on. Alrighty, this is probably my, spotlight card out of this set of reveals. I think this card's really strong. Localized Destruction is 3 white sorcery. You get an energy counter. Then you may pay 1 or more energy counters. If you do, each creature you control with power equal to the amount of counter paid this way gains indestructible until end of turn. Destroy all creatures. So, the way this card is worded does say each creature you control power equal to the amount. So it doesn't look like it's like equal to or less than. It's pretty much your very specifically deciding what you want to keep, but still having the ability to choose some creatures to keep, or at least one creature to keep and then wipe the board, is not something to be understated. White has a ton of board wipes, and obviously this is not the strongest one, but it does feel like it has a lot of potential because of the fact that you can manipulate your counters and then use them in a way that you can choose how you want to, kind of go about the board destruction while also keeping your strongest creature or perhaps your most important creature, whichever, in that moment you decide is the most one you want to keep. Razorfield Ripper is 2 and a white artifact creature equipment Rhino. When it or equipped creature attacks, you get an energy counter. Then it gets +X/+X till end of turn, where X is the amount of energy you have. You can reconfigure it, which is of course equipping, by either paying 2 or paying 3 energy counters. You attach it to a creature you control or unattach it. It's a sorcery and it's not a creature while it's attached. So similar to some of the stuff we saw in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, like Rabbit Battery, it's an equipment. Not a terrible card. It doesn't do a ton for you. It just kind of generates the 1. I guess it might be decent enough in terms of buffing something up, depending on how much energy you're able to generate, but it's unspectacular, I guess. Nothing about it feels crazy, doesn't feel terrible, it's relatively low cost, but it doesn't necessarily feel like something you'd want to invest your energy counters into, so, I'd say it falls right in the middle of usefulness to me. Salvation Colossus is 6 white artifact creature construct. Flying, Vigilance, Trample. Whenever you attack other creatures you control, get +2/+2 and gain indestructible till end of turn. And it has Unearth, pay 8 energy. Of course, Unearth is basically return it to the battlefield, give it haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. This is pretty good. It's definitely one of the things you'd probably want to get engraved and bring back, but using the energy counters to get a 9/9 with trample that can give everything else indestructible, flying vigilance, of course. Yes, it does have the fact that it's going to be exiled, once it's gone from, being brought back with Unearth, but if you do have a way to bring it out regularly, you've got a strong creature there that can do a hell of a lot of things. And the indestructible, the buffs, it's already a 9/9. There's a lot to like about it here. I worry it may be a little costly, but I think depending on how quickly energy counters are able to be generated, you could see this card having more of an impact than I'm thinking initially on the surface. We'll have to see what happens. Silver Quill Lecturer is 4 and a white creature, core wizard. Creature spells you control have Demonstrate. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may copy it. If you do, choose an opponent to also copy it. Each copy becomes a token. Again, doesn't necessarily feel like it fits directly into the energy theme. However, I see why it's here. Obviously, being able to copy things is going to be really useful. And this is an interesting take on, creature generation. You're giving the opponent creatures as well, but you could sort of work with an opponent to give them something that, or maybe you could play something that's detrimental to the opponent to have. I mean, there's obviously so many different ways you could take this, but any card that lets you copy spells when you cast them is definitely going to be something that people are going to try to find ways to make work, and I don't think this card is any exception. It definitely feels like it will have a place in a lot of different commander decks. Alrighty, Aurora Shifter is 1 and a blue creature shapeshifter that when it deals combat damage to a player, you get that many energy. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 2 energy. When you do, it becomes a copy of another target creature you control, except it has this ability, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you get that many energy. A really, really good card. It does a lot, and the fact that you can make it become a copy of something has, almost limitless applications, but the fact that it also keeps that energy generating effect means if you use something, copy something that's unblockable, copy something that has, Island Walk, Forest Walk, whatever, that can guaranteed get through, something with flying, it's a very solid way to stack up energy counters, especially if you have other creatures out that are more powerful. You can start to get a lot of creatures fast. I think this is going to be one of the best ways to generate energy counters, at least based on the new cards that we have. And it's pretty low cost to play, and it's actually not that hard to get it going if you're already utilizing other energies. Realistically, you should only have to pay for it once, and then it should pay for itself on future turns. So I think this card, there's not much to say beyond it is very good. It is absolutely going to be one of the key components, I think, towards this deck working as a cohesive unit, and it's really strong. And obviously I see why it's commander only and not legal in modern, because it does feel like it would be good there too. Then again, I don't know, because I'm not an expert on modern. I'm just based on reading the card and kind of seeing what it feels like to me. Blaster Hulk is a 6 red artifact creature pirate that costs 1 less to cast for each energy counter you've paid or lost this turn. It has haste, and whenever it attacks, you get 2 energy counters. Then you may pay 8 energy counters. When you do, Blaster Hulk deals 8 damage divided as you choose among up to 8 targets. This is a beast of a card. It is very, very cool. I love the design, and the artwork is top tier. It's a robot pirate with a giant cannon blasting people away. It is just flavorful. It's awesome, and it feels strong. It has haste, and obviously, if you're already having ways to get a lot of counters, dealing 8 damage divided amongst any number of targets can do a whole heck of a lot of things for you. I think, really where its strongest asset is that as long as you're spending energy, you can bring it out for free and have an 8/8 with haste. That's not necessarily free, but, for 2 mana for an 8/8 with haste is a pretty good investment. I don't know how often you're going to be able to utilize that other effect, but considering you get 2 when it attacks and you need to pay 8, realistically, if you have a way to get 6, you can use this and ping a bunch of small creatures, ping an opponent for 8 damage, ping 2 opponents for 4 damage. However you want to go about it is up to you, but the card itself, I think, is pretty darn good for that purpose. Filigree Racer is 3 and a red artifact vehicle. When it enters the battlefield, you get 4 energy counters. Whenever it attacks, you may pay 2 energy counters. If you do, target instant or sorcery in your graveyard gains Jumpstart until end of turn. Jumpstart says you may cast it from your graveyard by discarding card in addition to paying its other cost, then exile it. It has crew 1, so not hard to crew. Actually pretty good, especially by vehicle standards. I think this is pretty good. You're paying 4 mana for 4 energy, and then if you have a way to crew it, kind of get things going, not a bad card at all, especially, like I said, by vehicle standards. Some of the vehicles tend to be a little underpowered, or some are broken. I guess there's really not much of an in-between, but this one definitely feels like one that you would want to play. Sphinx of the Revelation is 3 white-blue artifact creature Sphinx with flying and lifelink. Whenever you gain life, you get that many energy counters. You can pay white, blue, tap, pay X energy, draw X cards. That's a lot of phrase there. This could be nuts. Being able to gain life and turn that into energy counters. Obviously, white has a ton of life gain cards. It has lifelink, so just dealing 4 damage gives you 4 energy. This This is a good one. This is really, really strong, and I think I misread it when I was looking at it before I made the video, because I did not realize that you gain life. I thought you said whenever you gain life, you get an energy counter, not that many. So this is probably better than I was giving it credit for. This is a good resource engine. Stack up your counters, play a few things that give you life, and then, you know, just draw cards and have a consistent, like, rotation of energy counters for not the highest risk investment. This is definitely a good one. I think it's one to include. It gets a high grade from me. A conversion apparatus is a 3-drop artifact you can tap for colorless. Pay 3, tap, get 3 energy counters, or pay 3 energy, add 3 mana in any combination of colors. Pretty solid 3-drop mana rock, like better than maybe Command Sphere. It you know, just generally speaking, within the energy deck at least. We get plenty of different 3-drop rocks that do different things. What I like about this is that it can be any combination of colors if you pay the energy, so you can pay colorless to get the 3 energy counters, and then on the next turn you can turn them into anything. Obviously, the whole point is the conversion. It's playing into the theme quite nicely. It's a solid card, especially for energy purposes. And finally, for the new cards, Stone Idol Generator. It is a 5-drop artifact. Whenever a creature you control attacks, you get an energy counter. You can tap it and pay 6 energy counters to create a 6/12 colorless construct artifact creature token with trample. Activate only as a sorcery. Not bad. Obviously, being able to get counters when you attack is good, and then paying 6 to get a token that's a 6/12 is decent. You know, it's a little costly, but I think anything you can take that will consistently generate energy counters for you is probably worth at least considering we're looking to fill a 100-card deck here, and, you know, there's only so many really strong energy cards, so it's okay. These are, you know, some of these cards aren't, like, game-breaking, but they're probably going to be played simply because they're better alternatives to what's out there currently, but we'll have to see once, you know, people actually have a chance to really lab with the decks a bit more and see what looks to be the popular choices. Alright guys, so before I wrap the video, I just wanted to talk about a few of the honorable mention reprints. You can see, obviously, online, pretty much anywhere, the full deck list and make decisions for yourself. I will say, I think the land base on this is pretty uninspired, considering the premium product, but there are a few decent ones. Mystic Gate and Adarkar Waste are definitely worth more than, you know, your bulk lands, so it's a pretty good inclusion. This deck's going to have a few big hitters, though. Akroma's Will is a really good reprint. It's like a $25-ish card on average. A super strong card in Commander in general, but nice to see it here. Farewell, not exactly the most expensive at about $10, but a generically good white staple card in a lot of decks, so obviously it's good that it's included here. Aetherworks Marvel, which is, you know, one of the better energy counter generators, is about $10 out of Kaladesh, and getting a reprint here, which is awesome. And then we've got Gonti's Aetherheart, which had gone up quite a bit as well. About $12 to $15 will be in the deck there. So the value for reprints, along with those, sorry, I almost forgot, Goldspan Dragon, which is another really good card that's like $20. You know, that's $50, $60 worth of reprint value right there, which is definitely good in terms of the actual cards you're getting. Like I said, we don't know what the price of the deck is going to be, so it's hard to judge it on that exactly, but I'm guessing and operating under the $75-ish price point, which leads me to believe that in terms of reprints, these are actually pretty good. I don't think the deck is, you know, incredible. I'm not saying go out and buy it now, but I am saying if the deck interests you, and you can get it around 55 to 60, it's really not that bad. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in here. I'm probably going to get this deck myself, and I know on Amazon, at least at the time I'm making this video, there were some pre-orders up around $55, so maybe find a decent deal. It's by far better than a lot of other Commander decks that I've seen in terms of the reprint inclusion, and might just be worth overall, you know, your time if it's one that you're interested in. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I know it was a little longer. I hope, you know, those of you who did stick with it enjoyed it. I try to keep them shorter so that, you know, I feel like I'm, you know, draining your time, but there's also more cards than ever in these decks now, so I want to make sure we're covering it all. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.